T-minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody. We're back. Welcome to another episode of the Launch Sequence podcast post-September vacation. And it is episode 70. Today, I've got with me my favorite inanimate object, the Jack Axton, cargo hauler and box premier. How you doing today?
I am doing all right.
Good.
Despite several things in the trade economy, I am doing all right.
Well, you're looking good. A little bit yellow, I might say, but it seems you've been keeping up since last I saw you. You were in the episode, I think, towards the end of last year. I think we had an episode we were talking about cargo and all the things that we thought might happen with it in the next 6 months.
I will eventually get a camera one day, but until then,
someday, and I will have you back for that so that we can all see the gorgeous face. For anybody who's just listening to the podcast, I'm not actually making comments about him looking yellow. That's rude. He is a yellow box on the video, so it makes sense if you're watching. Not so much if you're listening. But how have things been going? I guess, how has making content and gaming and Star Citizen in general been going for you this past, I guess, 6 months or so? Have you been enjoying yourself, taking a break? What's been going on?
I mean, despite what feels like sometimes the game's best efforts, I have enjoyed myself. Last 6 months hasn't actually been that bad. Now, these days I mostly do streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's the occasional video every now and then. Just unfortunately, what I want to be able to do hasn't been the best so far, as like keeping up with different trading trends. But like the actual. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what is that you want to do?
So a long time ago, actually, where I got my start was doing the State of Trade video series, which was just weekly looks at trading trends, what prices had been throughout the week, and what to expect most likely for the next week. And in the beginning, you could actually do that because people were still learning trade. There were slight updates back then, not a lot, but slight ones. And then unfortunately, we hit about a year and a half of just nothing whatsoever.
When was that?
Fell into a rut.
It's like 2021 or?
Yeah, it was around 3.10 is when things started getting really bad, but I would say it pretty much culminated in 3.12 with the removal of Levski. Because around 3.10, they did this thing where they took all the regional economies, because back in the day, you had 3 different economies. You had the USA region economy, European, and Australian. And you could actually tell how good the economy was just by jumping between each one, because Europe had the most players, which means their prices were the worst.
Right.
Because, they didn't adjust them for population. Between 3.10 and 3.12, they actually merged all the economies into one, which is how it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, they didn't actually increase the amount of trade goods, demand, or refresh rates. They left everything the exact same. So they squeezed the 3 economies into one and just didn't do anything to accommodate for it.
Right.
So, prices were high, demand was low, and a lot of people were left out, to dry, basically.
Yeah, and basically what happened there was, and I think everybody's noticed this, it's been a pretty popular topic, and we actually, I think, talked about it the last time we were together, but basically people would get to an outpost, and more often than not, everything would be sold out, and if you aren't a player in the know like yourself who knows what's actually going on, it just kind of looks to everybody like there's nothing to trade, no matter where you are.
And the thing is, like, there's a lot of misinformation that gets out there too about that. Because let's be honest, Star Citizen has no official tutorial.
Yeah.
and a lot of people just learn by what they hear. And
Just die and
someone will
retry.
hear something. Yeah, exactly. Die, retry. They go, hey, like I'm here trying to buy something, and someone will just make an offhand comment. Some poor newbie takes it as actual fact. They spread that to some other newbie.
Yeah.
Like I have seen so much misinformation on the trade economy. There was one guy. I'm not gonna name names or anything, but there was one guy who was ranting that the trade economy wasn't working in the Australian servers because there were too many Americans coming over to buy, and the lag caused by Americans in the Australian server was what was eating up all the cargo and making it unable to purchase. Like, really? Like, you think you think my 200 millisecond connection is what's ruining the entire economy?
Americans, like the plague, spreading across
Yeah,
the
like-
world, taking our demand.
Like over here, taking our laranite. It's like, my guy. Maybe it's because it's laranite and there's just not a lot of it, period. And yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just so much misinformation that gets coded in as fact around the trade economy.
And it
Sorry,
feels
go ahead.
like, well, I was just gonna say it. It feels like CIG never talks about it.
They don't. They've got this weird thing where combat gets a pass because combat's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm gonna make a trailer to sell someone on Star Citizen. I'm sorry, but it's not gonna be trading. Like, that is just a whole A going from point A to B.
Just ships flying around.
Mining. Yeah, like mining, you could put like some anxiety music to like the little laser trying not to explode a rock. But combat is what sells the game because it looks good in a trailer and it's easy to get into. Mining, they've got all the gadgets and they tell you all about it, but they want trade, it feels like, to be some sort of discoverability mechanic. It's like, for some strange reason, whenever they introduce something new with trade, they hide it. They want people to figure it out instead of explaining how it works. And they won't even say why they want that. Like, it's just, like, it feels like it's being treated like some poor stepchild, no?
Little secrets. Do you have an example of something like that?
Yeah, so like all right, so 3.5 was the last patch we had where they had the infinite updates for refreshes. So like, you pull up to a place, you buy all the laranite, 2 minutes later, fully restocked.
Right.
And that's how the entire economy worked back in 3.5. 3.5.1, they don't change any of the prices, but they introduce the economy where it has cumulative updates. So instead of just replacing all 200 SCU of the laranite, it would do like 5, 6 every update. Nothing in the patch notes about how it works, just changed economy. 3.6 is when they actually introduced a better pricing system.
Mm-hmm.
Because back then it was like a 5% profit margin at best. Like, yeah, you can sell these medical supplies and make 50,000, but you got to spend $1 million to do it. And let me tell you how heartbreaking it is to fly 4 caterpillars full of medical supplies to a place and 30K right before you get there.
It wreaked havoc on the community for years. I remember it was just like cargo hauling was the most intense thing in the game because you're like, is this 1.5 million going to be gone?
Yeah, and like, the thing is, I'm fine with it if it's something with player agency. Like, if I've got someone who's trying to yo-ho-ho me, that's fine. If I've got some jerkwad who's just looking to, ruin my day, that's fine. Like, there's some sort of agency there. But the thing that always ticked me off about cargo hauling is, like, you had to factor in the end of the physical universe to your profit margin. And it's like, oh, well, I had a 30K, there goes all my cargo. And not a lot of people know this, but they have actually had the ability for 30K protection since 3.4 PTU. Way back in the day.
How do you know
During
that?
3.4, because I tested it. It was an open PTU. Wasn't even Evocati. They had it as a feature that could be tested. So basically, if you had a ship parked somewhere, whenever you went to like an ASOP terminal, you could send it to wherever you were. Like, it was a whole other button. And it was great. The only problem was it was free and it was instant. So you could go somewhere, buy your cargo, backspace, wake up at a station, instantly call your ship there for free, and then sell the stuff. Like it just sped up the whole
Yes. I remember
trip.
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of doing anything like, introducing a timer or a fee to get around that, they just removed it.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. I misspoke. I don't remember doing that. What I remember was the whole loading your ship at the city and then flying up to the spaceport and calling it there because of the combined
Yeah.
inventories. So I actually didn't experience that, but that was when you said 3.6?
Yeah, it was 3.4. That was actually before we got ArtCorp. Around, I want to say that was December of 2018, maybe like January 2019. Don't quote me on that part.
Quoted.
But around that era.
Somebody clip it.
Oof. Gross. How could you do that? Character assassination. But
Put it up
like,
in
that's
lights.
the thing. Like, people were abusing it.
Yeah.
So they just took it out before it ever actually hit PU. And I mean, it's fair, but a timer on it or something,
Yeah. I'm not
So
going to
it's,
lie. Go ahead.
Oh, it's just, like that they've actually been able to do that since then. Um, Now, I'm not sure if there was some sort of other tech getting in the way because they didn't really comment on it. They just kind of removed it.
Mm-hmm.
But if they took time to explain every little change they do, then they'd never actually get another patch out. So
Yeah, that's one of the most difficult parts of following the game is like they definitely miss the ball sometimes when they need to say something, but at the same time you can't just put a blanket unanimous statement as like, hey, you all need to just share everything.
yeah,
It's like get better at sharing the critical things. And we'll talk about probably later in this episode the stuff going on with PES. Like it would have been nice if they had been better about communicating about that stuff or about iCache preceding it. But also, we don't want you to share every single little thing. So yeah, the whole communication aspect is interesting. But I'm wondering what kind of stuff they had to do in order to bring that back, because it'd be weird if they didn't include it just because they didn't want to.
I mean, at the same time, they also introduced like the ship inventories, and they were probably working on that one for a while too.
Yeah.
So there probably had to be something there because I've noticed, like if I 30K with a ship, my inventory in the ship is fine, but anything I had physically sitting out in the ship, like if I had like a helmet box or whatever, that's gone, that's poofed.
Mm-hmm.
But
You
I'm
really
just wondering if it's.
no. Please keep going.
I'm wondering, how long that technology was being built before they just brought it back out again.
Yeah. Yeah. What I was going to say is you really brought me back when you mentioned before we had ArtCorp, and it reminded me that we didn't always have 4 planets in Stanton, and that's kind of weird to think about now. Like, it wasn't that long ago, but it feels like Stanton should have always had 4 planets. Like, I struggle to remember what I did back when we only had Hurston and, like, I guess Port Olisar and Delamar. Because that's a small game compared to what we have now. We've got like 18 space stations, 12 moons, 4 planets, and all the stuff on them.
The awkward thing is that ArtCorp was actually the first planet that we had, and then it went back in the closet for a while for them to like touch it up and make the real planet.
Yeah, because they had the module.
Like the first multiplayer module, yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, which looked so much different. I remember those early days running people over in Grey Cat buggies and.
Yep.
Those are good times. So it sounds like the cargo hauling's been basically non-existent over this past year. Have you just given up on that, or are you still trying it out?
I still do it. I still do it daily. I can't decide if it's because I hate myself or
You're just a masochist. It's cool.
I get that much of a masochist.
Yeah.
Just like the first time, like when the game Demon Souls came out way back on PS3, I tried an all punching playthrough. Let me tell you how far that went, but I tried, and I kind of feel like doing cargo in Star Citizen is the same thing. It's a lesson in pain, but do you want to fly big spaceships? Then got to do cargo,
It's the new standard for gameplay. Suffering.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, 2 games were about fun. Now it's like, oh, watch me speed run, Dragon's Dogma with a DDR controller that doesn't work with the right arrow. Like, it's
purposefully found a broken pad.
Yeah. It's like, we're not about fun. It's about the achievement, the sweat.
Yeah.
Watch me triple backflip this reclaimer full of laranite into an Area 18 hangar.
Ooh, that's pretty dope. Honestly, you deserve an award if you do that.
Okay, so I did it, but without the laranite. I was flying the reclaimer, and someone's like, "Hey, man, do a flip." It's like, I'll do 3.
I've heard the rumors that you've got some pretty saucy landings.
Yeah, that's like my one claim to fame while I wait for cargo. Gotta stick the landing.
A skill every cargo hauler needs.
Like, I've been working on doing the unmanned landings on planets because you can land a ship without being in the seat at a space station. That's easy enough.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a whole other ball game doing it on a planet because you actually have to use your cruise control if you're not going to be in the seat. You can't just kill the engines and eyeball it. And
hopefully that flight model update lets us do more with that. And I don't think that's in. That actually we might get to hear a little bit about that in CitizenCon. And for anybody who is joining us today, I realized I didn't really talk about what we're talking about today. We're obviously cargo is a big topic, but we're also going to talk about CitizenCon. It's coming up in a couple weeks, 15 days, 1 hour and 55 minutes. Don't ask me how I know. And we will be talking a bit about what we expect to come from it and what we might see. But before then, I still want to kind of talk more about the cargo hauling. You're doing it every day, and originally you were very focused on what sounds like the logistics side of the cargo hauling. When all is said and done, and this is actually part of the game, and that mystical economy is actually working, are you more along the lines of being the trader, the person who's like buying, selling, and planning routes and stuff? Or do you actually want to be that cargo hauler that's just running long Euro Truck Simulator routes to different planets and stuff? What's your bread and butter? Because I know a lot of people like to discern between the two, cargo hauling and trading.
Honestly, I kind of like both. Like, I'm definitely going to be doing both. Like, it's hard to really choose because when it comes to logistics side, sourcing the cargo, planning the route, all that, like that is fun. Really trying to maximize what you're going to make there. But at the same time, there is something so satisfying about not having to think, finding a contract, filling up your ship, and just Euro trucking it. Like putting on some country trucking music. It's not your cargo. You don't have to worry about the bottom line. Like, the worst is going to be the rep.
Mm-hmm.
If someone spaces you. There's something so satisfying about that.
I get what you mean.
And, you can't really emulate that with the current delivery boxes because, half the time they don't even work, or, one forgets to physicalize, or it spawns under a building,
and it's like 3 boxes.
Put it in there. Yeah, it's always the same 3 boxes.
Yeah.
And it's not the same. It's the difference between a FedEx route and like a JB Hunt route, It's like you want to go somewhere far over a long period of time instead of, take this pizza next door for me to Humboldt, will you?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you want to be in that seat for a while. And there's something that's very relaxing about that.
And I think they really kind of sold that with their first demo of the quantum economy, because they were talking about how, this factory is producing weapons, and so they need a certain amount of steel, they need a certain amount of titanium. That's redundant. They need a certain amount of titanium and a certain amount of chlorine. I don't know. And like, they're able to say, okay, this company is putting out a beacon that says we need this much chlorine. We need a hauler to grab it. Here are the best places to get it. Can you do it? And just being that hauler that's going through the list, finding the job that you want, picking it, and then knowing the places you need to go. I'm not even a hauler, and that sounds really cool, really fun. And knowing
I
that
mean,
that's adding effect to the verse is a nice bonus.
I mean, that's essentially what like Elite Dangerous has. You know, they've got the trading where there's no mission involved. It's you just straight buying and selling, no middleman. There's the trucking where it's like, hey, take these boxes that we have here and take them elsewhere. And then there's like those type of missions where it's like, hey, we need you to source XYZ. We don't really care where you get it from.
Right.
So it's like buying it and trucking it to them, but it's that nice mix. And honestly, if CIG could just blatantly steal all three mission types, I would not complain whatsoever.
And
Like,
then what I want is for them to go a step further. Look at us. Just, hey, you haven't done this, but on top of that, you should also do this. It's the Star Citizen mantra. But what I would love is for them to be like, okay, hey, I took a contract that says I need to source 10 tons of Banu Mithril. I have no idea what that is, but it's some crazy material that needs to be sourced and bought. And you can be like, okay, I'm the cargo hauler. I own the business, but I don't have the people to do that. I'm going to hire a hauler and 2 escorts and give them the job to then bring to me to finish out for the company. And being able to kind of daisy chain missions and assign missions to people who are technically working for you is, for me, that's like peak what I would like to see from Star Citizen. And it sounds like
so
that's
nice.
Yeah, it sounds like that's what they've been aiming for, but we still have not really seen much sign of it.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, after seeing their legal system, watching them try to make a player-based, mission assignment system seems like it's going to definitely take a minute unless you're just doing all that organically somewhere else.
Yeah, I think it's got to be
'Cause-
the next iteration of the beacons, right? That's kind of where that's leading.
Yeah. Like, have you ever played a game called Eco?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I got introduced
So you know
to
how
it. Execute with the info runners. They had a server with quite a few different Star Citizen people on it. It's pretty cool.
Okay. All right. So, like, you know how they've got the job board where you can actually create a job
Yeah.
for other people to do, and
Yeah.
like the developers of Eco spent years getting that to work, and granted, I know Eco is not nearly as what's the word I'm looking for?
Expansive?
Yeah, but setting like all the parameters just to get those jobs to work, um, I feel like that's definitely going to take CIG a while to do anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
or it'll hit that weird first tier system where pretty much anyone taking a job is going to get scammed out of their labor.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, technically it would be realistic, I guess.
But
in,
that's-
space dystopia.
It's kind of how it's already going, right? So you can basically give a mission to a medic. Like, it's not official, but making a medical beacon is essentially putting a medical mission on a job board. So it's kind of halfway there, but then most people already have found out that, like, people are abusing the system. There's no real good rating system. There's no great feedback system. And a lot of different features are missing, to the point where if you go and save somebody who's put a medical beacon out there, 70% chance of 70% of the time, they've got a couple buddies there waiting to rob you and loot you. So
Yeah.
there's definitely got to be a lot of supporting features. I'm hoping, and also disappointed that we haven't heard about them working on this in the interim. And a lot of times they like to talk about the stuff coming in the next 6 months or so, but I do think that this is one of those topics that would be good for CitizenCon. Here's what we're thinking, at least, or doing in terms of design when it comes to player spawned missions. But they're so quiet about that, and that feels like such a big part.
I also feel like they're being kind of mum on the whole player reputation system too. Because, like, I know you've got the whole faction rep thing, but there's supposed to be a system for, player to player reputation.
Right.
So I can, look up someone on Space Yelp and see if they, can actually do this job or not, or someone's left them some bad reviews,
You better watch out. They might have paid for some positive reviews.
Exactly. But that would be part of the gameplay, because, like, Eve has a huge reputation system, like, where you can basically just look up everything on someone. It's like, all right, so they've worked for this corp several years
Oh,
ago.
that's cool.
Yeah, like there is a huge information system in Eve where you can look up everything on a person. And people will also do these things where they do it on purpose, where they fluff it so they can actually get into places,
Hmm.
work their way up to the top, and then just scam everything from a corp. And they use their rep on an account to do it. And I would really like to see a more in-depth rep system that is player to player, that allows you to go, do I want to delegate part of my hauling job to this guy because he's gonna scuzz out?
Hmm.
Do they have contacts with pirates? So it's like, hey, I'm gonna be doing this job hauling this Banu mithril. Sure would be a shame if it didn't make it to where it's going, and my Panthers just jammed during the assaults that you guys are planning.
Yeah. Just a heads up to you and everybody who's listening. Call to prayers on, so you might hear somebody in the background that's not supposed to be here.
Wait, what do we have on? Is this like Dancing with the Stars?
No, it's
The Masked Singer?
I have a mosque like right outside my window right here, so the call to prayer comes on and it just comes blasting
call
through
to
the
prayer, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you
Gotcha.
can hear that, but just a heads up. Yeah, they're definitely, the player to player reputation system is, I thought they would have been further along with it. I thought that the reputation system was going to kind of start to be complementary to the crime stat system by now. And is kind of another, I think, pillar that they need to start shedding a little bit more light on in terms of design. A lot of people don't know what Star Citizen is going to be. Like, if you ask the casual backer, what do you expect Star Citizen to play as a game? I don't think anybody really knows.
You see, I feel like that's the same way with CIG, and that's why it's taken so long. Like, they keep re-examining it and expanding in certain areas, and it's like, all right, this is the last time that we refocus, guys, and then something else comes along, and like I'm still waiting to find out what that one Reliant news van is supposed to do.
The Mako.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we had easier ways to film in game, but who knows? So 318 is coming up here with a lot of features. Well, it had a lot of features. 2 of them recently got delayed, and I think they're the 2 that, while they were combat focused, had something to add to the cargo hauling gameplay. That is the quantum economy. The addition we were going to see was going to be the first implementation of probability volumes. Not huge when it comes to the actual idea of supply and demand and the more cargo focused aspect, but it was more progress on the quantum system. We're still seeing that kind of kicked down, like the can is still being kicked, and we don't have any more news on how quantum is going to shape cargo or anything like that. Do you think seeing these things get pushed back in that segment, that quantum economy segment, are going to add more delays to cargo hauling? Or do you think that they're still kind of, have you seen anything, monthly reports or progress track or anything that shows that they might still be working towards building a better cargo system? Not a cargo system, I'm sorry, but like a better supply and demand and trading system.
Like, as far as that goes, I haven't seen anything. I've been kind of worried about quantum because, I mean, let's be honest, we've been waiting on that since 2019 when they announced it would be out the next year.
Did they ever? Did they put an actual date on it? I feel like that would have been a bad idea.
Like when Tony Z came out, he said, "Yeah, we're gonna have our first implementation next year."
Right. Yes.
Of course, that didn't really end up happening, but
I think it didn't.
I feel like
it didn't happen until 2021, right?
Yeah, like their very first tier 0
No,
version of it.
I'm sorry, that was this year that happened. Because last year they said they wanted it in at the end of 2021, and then it didn't happen. This year was when it first started getting added for fuel and stuff. Sorry about that. Keep going.
Yeah, no, you're good. And they have done part of the quantum stuff with cargo, with certain commodities, but it's very restricted. It's a very minimal tier 0. Because there's a lot of people that do like data mining, things like that, where you can
Hmm.
actually find like the refresh rates for certain types of commodities. And some of the commodities that you can look up through data mining don't actually line up with what you find in game. Especially with the seasonal event commodities for like the IAE, not IAE, the Invicta stuff. For example, helium. Helium in the game, like in the data mining stuff, is listed at all of the locations it's supposed to be, except Humboldt. On that one, it's actually server based instead of client based, and it's just a nice little example of their, tier 0 quantum. However, as far as I'm like pushing that back, um, this is gonna sound awful, but I don't really care because the versions that we've had so far have been very basic. Like when they introduced the quantum pricing for fuel, I took a Starfarer to literally every single R&R to measure the fuel prices, what it would cost to fill up one single tank
Hmm.
of each type of quantum and hydrogen. And then I hit just a bunch of outposts, and it turns out there are two prices for quantum. There is a high price for fuel and a low price, and no deviation, no like middle ground. There's just a high demand price, low demand
So
price.
it's binary, basically.
Yeah. So like if that's the current system we have, I'm cool with them cooking it a little bit longer. Because I mean, technically, our current cargo system has more variation than that, and it could also be because the amount of refresh they have for fuel is probably a lot larger than the player base to actually be affected by it.
Hmm.
Because if you go to the commodity list now, they list the price of fuel at every single location, all outposts, all stations, and I guarantee you, there's not enough people pulling up to SAL5 on Lyria to refuel to adjust the price. So I'm cool with that one cooking for a while. Like, is cargo going to be a bit more basic till we get it? Yeah, but if they give us whatever that is for cargo, I don't feel like it's going to look that different compared to what we have now.
So, so you're saying that essentially, if somebody, let's hypothetically, if a group of people were to go to a station and buy up all the fuel and just keep purchasing fuel and purchasing fuel, it wouldn't necessarily rise in price. It would just jump up to another set price that's higher.
Yes, yeah. Like there's a low price and then a high price, and those prices are just the exact same thing. So like high price would be like $3, low price would be like $1, just as an example. There's no in between. There's no like 3.72 or 4 on the high price. Like if you take a Starfarer to every single location and you just check the price on filling up like one pod. Don't actually do it because it gets expensive.
Hmm.
But just the actual price, you will find two prices wherever you go. Like I did it for like 2 days on stream just to check them, and you either found one price or the other.
I appreciate that you did that because that was something I was curious about, and I meant to do myself. Kind of get enough people in there to test the system and see how it varies.
It was
Disappointing to
so
hear.
boring.
Yeah,
It was so boring. God.
and that's just with the three
I-
commodities, right? It's like refuel, repair, and arming costs.
yeah. Now, as far as like the repair, rearming costs, that one's very difficult to do in a controlled environment.
Hmm. Why is that?
Um, because repair, you're going to take damage going between places anyway, so it's hard to set the amount of damage you're going to have before you arrive to a place.
Sure.
Uh, Rearming, it's a little bit easier because you could just fire off, like 5 rounds and then just land. But the fuel, like literally the only way for me to be able to measure fuel in a controlled environment is using the Starfarer fuel pods.
Right.
Because if you're just pulling up like an Avenger or whatever, even if it's only like 5% fuel missing, it's not a static 5%. It's like a 5.47293 whatever.
Yeah. You don't
So
have like a set volume.
yeah, exactly. So Starfarer is literally the only way to measure it, and that's when it's like, oh, there's not a lot of variation here, is there? And it's been a while since I've checked it, so maybe I need to do that again. But I don't know if I really want to spend the time.
Yeah, I would wait until they actually say something. It's frustrating because
Yeah,
it's also really affecting mining. I believe it was Ruby, yeah, in chat right now during the live podcast had mentioned that nobody has any reason to mine anything other than Quantanium. Nobody has any reason to trade things other than like Laranite, titanium, and medical supplies, stuff like that. And there's no variability. Even though I think you had mentioned last time we talked that the economy itself is technically dynamic in the way that some prices change for stuff, it's not really reactive on a large scale.
like the biggest issue right now with mining is whenever you refine stuff, the refined material is the exact same price as it would be to sell from the materials in the trade economy, because that's what they become. Like if I mine titanium and I refine it and I go to sell it, it becomes the exact same titanium commodity that I would buy at like Ariel to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Why the prices are terrible, because it's like, oh, I'm mining, I'm doing my thing. I can sell this titanium that I refined for 8.90, UEC a unit. And they introduced Quantanium, and Quantanium is not in the trade economy. Same thing with like Bexalite, Terranite,
That's a good point.
Boris, but they introduced Quantanium, and the price is literally double of the next best thing.
Mm-hmm.
If not. So there's really no point in mining anything else unless you just don't want the timer and anxiety of having to get back. Um, That's because it's all baked into the trade economy, and the trade economy is crap.
Yeah.
It's not trades making it worse. It's just mining is forced to participate in a gameplay type that has not been updated in years to sell their stuff.
Yeah. Feels like the game is really being held back at this point by this economy system, by the quantum system.
Yeah, and like, and I'll even touch on piracy here. Pirates have a hard time because there's no one really to hunt. Like there's a few people out there, but the profit margins are so slim that literally anyone doing piracy is doing it for the gameplay, not the money.
Right. I mean,
It's
that's
like,
why everybody's
hey,
playing the game right now, right?
yeah, I mean, there's a few people that play it to watch big money number go up, but it just it's like, man, I'm gonna hold this guy up. His profit margin is, or his profit is maybe 50,000. If I want him to realistically negotiate with me, I can hold him up for all of like maybe 10 to 20,000, which at that point just go to a comma ray mission, but
Yeah. And that's going to be interesting considering the cargo refactor, because a lot of people are looking at that as kind of the introduction of finally being able to realistically pirate people, to hold them up and extort them. Do you see that not really working out though, since the profit margins still suck and nobody's going to want to get rid of boxes anyways?
I think that's actually going to explode piracy.
Okay.
And the whole reason, okay, so right now, let's say I'm hauling and someone holds me up, okay? And it's the, hey, 50K or a bad day. Like, we're going to blow you up if you don't pay. Let's say I pay. For me to actually pay, it has to be worth it to where I still come out financially better than them blowing me up. So, if I'm hauling like titanium, at most, it's like, I'm still taking a loss at like paying like 200,000 or whatever, but it's better than, me paying or exploding and losing 400,000 or whatever.
Right.
Uh, or I just self-destruct and nobody profits. The thing with the new cargo refactor, they don't really need my agency anymore. They don't really need my cooperation. All they have to do is either A, get someone on the ship to murder me, which they do that a lot when piracy happens, because like, hey, we've got your ship. If you want it back, pay us. We'll drop it off wherever.
You've had people
But
actually
now,
steal the ship from you?
well, not me personally, but that's how a lot of it works, because a lot of players, when they see pirates, will just self-destruct.
Right.
But there's a lot of traders who don't pay attention, or if they get impulsed and left in a location, then the Marines, and I use that term loosely, pirate Marines, board the ship and then remove the pilot.
Remove.
Yeah, it's personnel restructuring. We're letting you go.
I'm
out
the captain
airlock.
now.
Exactly, and they're like hey, we have your ship. It still has the cargo on board, because that means they can't set up the self-destruct, and
Mhm.
that way the pirate still has a bargaining chip. However, they still have to wait for the trader to agree to pay them money to get it back. Um, because they can't remove the boxes from it. There
Okay.
used to be a way where you could actually sell the cargo of someone else's ship.
We need that so
Um,
bad.
But it was very janky. Basically, you could land a ship on top of an 890 and then sell the cargo, because it would show up in the 890's
Right.
cargo list. Well, they patched that out. They didn't like that, which was very sad. But
Killing our fun.
yeah, exactly. But with the new cargo system, they don't need the trader's agency anymore. If they space the trader, they open up the doors, move all the boxes to their own ship, and then they can go sell it. Now the boxes will still be tagged as illegal, so they'd have to take it to like a salvage yard, grim
Yeah.
hex, places like that. And they might actually lower the prices those places take it at, because if they kept the current system where they could get full price, the payday is going to be astronomical. Like, if you hit one caterpillar full of titanium, doesn't matter what the caterpillar bought it at, you're going to make $500,000.
With no
But
money on your, well, I guess, okay, not no money, but
I mean, some equipment,
yeah,
personnel.
not as high a financial risk.
Yeah, it's just, you have to move 576 boxes by yourself. But
Oh,
as long as
no.
you've got the manpower to do that,
Yeah.
I mean, that's money,
Now
And
you're
believe me, if
splitting your profit.
Yeah, but I mean, that's how it works. You got to
Yeah.
move the cargo.
Yeah.
And I think that'll actually make a lot of piracy groups who've been kind of waiting in the wings come out and do more stuff.
That's a really good point. The pirates don't need you anymore. You actually are going to have to negotiate with them, or you're gonna lose. I guess now they're going to have to deal with the idea of, like you said, people self-destructing or maybe alt F4ing and figure out a way to stop that kind of stuff. But overall, if we can start to understand that piracy is a thing, and if you get EMP'd, it doesn't mean you're about to get ganked. You might just get a couple boxes stolen from you. That could, it could be a huge change to that gameplay.
Yeah, because like a lot of people, as soon as they get held up by pirates that aren't immediately blowing them up, they'll just run to a bed and bedlog, which is about as cheesy and doofy as combat logging. But
Right.
Another thing is, as long as someone else is on that ship will not poof. So as long as they get one pirate on the ship, cargo can still be taken.
And it shouldn't poof if players are nearby, and they've talked about this. If the player's nearby, you shouldn't just be able to bed log and your ship disappears. That's crazy.
Yeah, and like I feel like obviously I don't want to be pirated because I like money, but I enjoy piracy because it makes things spicy and takes a gameplay loop that is just point A to point B and adds some fun to it.
Yeah.
And now you actually have to negotiate, like, hey, you know what? Instead of taking all my boxes, how about we settle this a more civilized way? and just makes it fun.
Yeah, that's a big change. I think probably one of the biggest changes that we can expect from the cargo refactor. Do you see it changing cargo hauling in any way? A lot of people are saying, it's basically just the ability to move boxes into that physical grid or take them off and transfer between ships and stuff like that. This is not, cargo elevators. This is not the persistent hangars with your cargo stuff. Besides piracy, which I think is a big deal, do you see the cargo refactor really making a difference otherwise for that profession?
I do, for one small glimmer of hope. And I know it keeps getting, pushed back, like salvage. But for a while, the Hull C was on track to release with the cargo refactor.
Right.
Now this is tentative. This is me theory crafting. This is me going into places that I probably have no business talking about. But
we love
the
theory
Hull
crafting
C,
here.
Oh yeah, I mean it's all we got to do in Star Citizen. It's like we gotta.
It's a pastime
or anything. Yeah, but for the Hull C to work, since it can't land on planets, it has to trade station to station.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've seen recently that about a patch ago they added a whole bunch of stations. That aside from like near Microtech, where the jump point is supposed to be, there's really no point to them.
Yeah, they're all the way out there.
Yeah, they're all the way out there. Like, there's no reason for you to go out there, but they're all mining stations. They have refineries, which means that since they have refineries, they're supposed to have refined raw materials, which makes me think Hull C, big hauling, take those refined materials from the edges of space to, like orbital stations. Which means there would be a massive overhaul of one, where goods are, to the possibility of refined goods, and just a giant shakeup of the economy that we have. Because right now, we have raw materials, metals, minerals, some medical supplies, processed food, distilled spirits. Drugs are somewhere. Drugs were forgotten about as. I'm going to go back to the stepchild metaphor again.
We always forget about the drugs.
Yeah. I mean, the drug economy has just been terrible since 3.5.1.
Come on, politicians, step it up.
Yeah, like make drugs better again, please. Like, like I don't want to slam a guy over slam. The neon's not looking bright.
These drugs are not making me forget about my life in Lorville.
Exactly. And the drug economy has just been gutted. But as far as like the actual non-illicit goods go, I just felt like with the Hull C being on track to release, and them trying to get away from releasing ships that have no gameplay, that it meant that part of the cargo refactor meant an economy refactor, at least like a tier 1.
I mean,
there was also that one ISC where the guy said, traders, help is coming. We've heard you. I mean, they also say a lot of things, but
they do.
I have held on to those words, squeezing every last ounce of serotonin I can get from them.
I struggle with it, man, because I was really hoping that they'd have some more to say about the economy leading up to this cargo refactor. But if anything, it's looking like they've backed even further away from it. They back when we got the quantum economy, we got that last update last summer, and he said, hey, we're going to start to get in the first bits that will be involved in quantum. That is refuel, repair, rearm. We're going to get that in by the end of the year. And then from there, every subsequent patch we do will be editing and working with that economy system. They very well might have been doing that since I think we got that stuff added in 3.17, right? That wasn't 3.16. That was like March or April-ish this year that we started to see quantum affect those commodities. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it was 3.16. I would have to go back and double check.
But either way, we've only had 1 or 2 patches since then. So we haven't necessarily passed that up and like they haven't failed on that. Well, maybe they have, I don't know. But my point is they haven't come out and said within the patch notes or on the feature track or anything, Hey, these are the new additions. These are the new things we're doing with the quantum economy in this patch because we did say we were going to do it every subsequent patch. So now I'm sitting here thinking, well, if they're not talking about it for 3.18, should we really expect anything?
I mean, I'm going to, just because it helps stave off the depression just
back
a
to
little
that,
bit, you know?
back to that masochist thing.
Yeah, it's like, they just gotta. Like it makes me think of like the kid from Angels in the Outfield, It's like, it could happen. Like, is it? Probably not. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna hope. I'm gonna hope. Like, because the thing that, hey, nice. The thing that worries me too about the cargo refactor, because like I see Ruby's talking about like having to load, like manually load stuff, or like, unloading stuff. There is so much ship technology debt um when it comes to loading or unloading cargo. um like the freelancer holds 6 to 12 SCU of cargo in that weird little atrium right before you hit the actual cargo area. Boxes can't fit through those doors. Like, they appear
Oh,
when you buy the
yeah.
cargo.
Yeah, you're
Can't
right.
get boxes through those. Carrick can't open the actual side doors to put the cargo in or out. They just kind of magically appear.
Mm.
Um, or like the standard Hornet that holds 2 SCU. How do you get those in and out? There are so many ships that just don't actually have like a decent system for moving cargo in or out, that are going to need some sort of attention for them to even be able to participate in this, cargo update.
Yeah. Yeah, there are. You're definitely right there. And that you see them getting updated to the gold standard, and you wonder, are they taking that into account with these gold standard reworks? And then you wonder, are there going to be other things in the future that might require another rework? And I think most people who play this game realize that there will be.
Yeah,
At least in the
because
next year or two. I think they'll kind of solidify things in the next couple of years with Squadron 42. But it's definitely, it's daunting. There's over 100 ships.
yeah, and like there's so many of those. So it's like, oh yeah, it's got cargo, but like, you see some of these, and like the amount of space between the box and the ceiling is like 2 inches. And let's be honest, out of all the tractor beams and various types of games we've used, unless they're using some sort of slightly cheesing snap to grid,
They are.
loading and unloading that is going to be a pain.
Yeah, they talked about that. And that's kind of the whole idea of this cargo refactor. We won't be loading stuff, I think, ourselves, just because we won't be able to get the cargo into there ourselves. I do think that with the kiosk timer upgrade, they will be having us waiting a certain amount to load that stuff. But I think loading stuff into the ships is going to be still a ways off, probably not until we get the freight elevators that they're working on.
Yeah, because they've been using the exact same outpost models too since 3.0. And nowhere at any of these outposts does it really support the infrastructure for like manually loading or unloading. And so it's going to have to just be like a magic timer where every few seconds a box appears. Because I'm sorry, but there's no way I can pull up at Humboldt, even in like a Mustang, and just grab boxes from somewhere. Like there's no infrastructure.
Yeah. Yep. So what does a cargo hauler do in game right now for fun? Is it worth it?
I mean, okay, like you can buy a hot dog. You can afford things. As far as if it being worth it, like, now, can I make more money bounty hunting in my C2 than I can trading in it? Yes, and it's insulting. But as far as finding fun,
yeah,
going back to the masochism, I find fun doing the worst possible trade routes in the worst possible ships. Like, hey guys, let's take a reclaimer, fill it full of barrel, and then take it to Microtech or Orison, or take a hauling job and like a retaliator for 3 boxes. Basically, doing the most unoptimized type of transport that you can.
I see. Making the gameplay for yourself.
Obviously, yeah, exactly. Like you're pretty much having to entertain yourself while you're waiting for things. Like it's still fun to do the regular hauling because it's just relaxing. So you step out of a outpost at Calliope and get blown 60 feet across the outpost and then die. But that's the game. That's
hazards
what do you
of the
expect?
work. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way you avoid that is to crouch whenever you're going over a different gravity grid or going up or downstairs. Just crouch.
I'm
You'll
terrible
never get
about that.
blown over again.
I jump everywhere. I'm like the worst kind of player. I bait the game into killing me.
Like you know that jerkwad that jumps constantly in every MMO, like even if they're just standing. That's me. That's what I do.
Yeah, I feel that.
I am a jumper, and jumping is not conducive to living in Star Citizen.
Nope.
Not at all.
No,
not at all.
The game doesn't like that. That's considered cheating to this game engine, and it will. Yeah, it's gonna be mad at you for it.
Yeah, but yeah, like that's it. Just like finding the most unoptimized types of routes, or like loading all your boxes in the side of a mule, and then flying somewhere just to drive the mule 30 feet up to the door, deliver the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And really just any excuse to use the mule because I love that stupid thing.
I hope there's an excuse to use it. It's in an interesting spot right now.
Yeah, because like I'm wondering if it really is going to be useful because like let's talk about loading. Am I really going to drive a mule back and forth 576 times to load up a caterpillar?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know if it's going to be like that's the kind of you would use a mule to load your Nomad maybe, and then you would use like an SRV to load your Caterpillar. But even then, like that's kind of janky trying to use a ship to load another ship. So I don't know. They want to have over 100 ground vehicles. Maybe they'll have a larger version of the mule that can carry 9 SCU boxes or something. I'm not. It's hard to understand not being able to see the roadmap, and it's also hard to have the faith that they have the full roadmap.
Yeah, because like they're trying to move towards those 32 SCU boxes.
Right.
The problem is some haulers can't support those. Like the Caterpillar, there's no way for it to hold those 32 SCU boxes. So it either needs a massive rework or it's stuck doing the individual SCUs. And you know what? Maybe that's it. Maybe that's a defensive mechanism. Maybe people won't want to pirate it because it's like, man, I don't want to deal with over 500 boxes. Just let it go. That's way too much labor.
Right.
The C2, you just throw like 12 boxes in there and you're good because they're all 32 SCU boxes. But,
yeah.
Like there's again, it's that technology debt that isn't really talked about when it comes to that cargo.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think is the most important thing for them to do to improve this part of the gameplay in the near future?
Variety, profit. Obviously, people are attracted to making the big money number go up. So a lot of people put value there, but I think the biggest thing is variety. Like right now, if I want to make money, what do? I go to Ariel, I buy titanium, laranite, woo, and I just go sell that and do it again. I cannot tell you how much I hate going to Ariel and buying laranite and titanium.
Yep. What is it? Bezdek and
yeah, Bezdek, Lathan, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
And and the prices are high. There are alternates like gold will sometimes be better if titanium is high. Every now and then you can get some good astatine or even diamond, but there's just not a lot of variations. It's basically buy whatever and take it to the closest TDD, except Orison. I did the math. I actually did some time trials. Even if you're trading in Crusader, it is faster to go to ArcCorp, sell, and come back than it is to fly into Orison. By 12 minutes.
Orison needs to pay out.
Yeah, because they all pay the exact same.
Right.
And honestly, if they actually just varied what people would pay, or just randomly would change the prices, like, I mean, I know that kind of factors into quantum, but it's like, hey, Orison, as bougie as it is, needs more polished wood. So we're running a special on how much we're buying wood for. You know, it would be nice to be able to buy that from Microtech instead of just selling it to New Babbage, take it all the way to
Yeah.
Horizons. It's like, all
Yeah.
right,
And I think
here's your fancy wood.
that was one of the improvements they had planned for 318, right? Paying you based on the distance traveled and stuff like that when it came to delivery missions. Was that part of what was delayed, or was that a separate task? I don't remember.
That one I don't know about, but like I swear, like there are Roblox games that have a more in-depth trade economy like that than Star Citizen right now.
Makes me sad, man. Dropping a tear.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, Roblox ain't the best, or it's not the best graphical system, but man, they got some in-depth games.
They got some killer 9-year-old programmers out there basically working for free, making killer video games. The whole Roblox. I mean, I don't want to get into that. I've watched.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah, I've definitely watched a couple and read a little bit about the coverage around Roblox. That is a sketchy system, but it is cool that people can make games that are, better at trading than Star Citizen is right now.
Well, I'm sure that CIG will poach a few of them once they become of working age.
Get them early.
We need you on our quantum system.
Come join our intern program and save the economy.
Our graphics have more than 6 triangles.
They are good graphics. That's what we've got. We've got great, very high fidelity cargo boxes.
Oh, yeah. Fidelity.
It's actually crazy that, like, if you go and look into how the cargo boxes are constructed, they're like, okay, so the interior of the box is 0.75 meters by 0.75 by 0.75, so that the outer shell still has enough to make it a full 1 meter box, but you don't have that much space on the inside, so you have to be careful of what you put inside, and you also have to get certain temperature safe boxes, and like they have all this stuff and documentation around the cargo system, and you're just like, can I just have different types of boxes, please?
Yeah, it's like, guys, just like listen. Like, it's like listening to someone talk about their D&D world, but it's like, all right, when do we play? And it's like,
once I come up with
5 hours. Yeah, it's like you just wanted 5 hours about the political system of Elf Kingdom, and you don't have a session planned. All right, great, cool.
That's the pain of Star Citizen. That is really it right there. And there's so many signs in the game that we're moving in the direction of a lot of these exciting things, but geez, the wait just is killer.
Yeah. Like, there are people who were born after Star Citizen was announced that are old enough to play it now,
Yeah. That is absolutely true. Yeah, it's been a while. And speaking of which, I've actually been doing I've been working on a video. This is, I guess, more for the audience than anybody, but Patreon supporters, Twitch subscribers, Ko-fi supporters, anybody really who is supporting the channel. I do exclusive videos every month. And the one I'm working on right now is a history of every CitizenCon event and kind of how the event has changed over time. And it feels like CitizenCon has been the best barometer for how hard it is to wait for this game because of some of the things that they show and then we never see, and some of the things they talk about and we never get.
Sandworm.
The good old sandworm. But I'm actually going to use that as my transition here, my little segue. And briefly, because we're over the hour and I don't want to keep you too long, let's talk a little bit about CitizenCon coming up. I would love to hear what you have interested. So I've got the schedule open here, and I got to say the first thing I noticed is that they're basically focusing entirely on 4.0 and the Pyro system and basically everything coming next year. How do you feel about that, especially in comparison to earlier CitizenCons?
Okay, all right. So I want to backtrack onto the earlier CitizenCon part.
Okay.
For a moment. I got started in 2014, and back then the CitizenCons were like, "Hey, here's Levski, here's Miles Eckhart, who's totally going to double cross you. Here's a sandworm." Like all these beautiful things, and I know they were more of a dream bait, essentially. Of hold on just a little bit longer, or you're gonna get massive desert sandworms and a storied progression mission where
Mhm.
if you try to do this thing, he'll double cross you. I think we actually got Miles Eckhart, and he sits in a bar and just gives you bounty missions.
And twirls
At
his
no
little
point,
glass.
yeah, like at no point did we actually get the Miles Eckhart that was advertised to us.
Mhm.
Now, granted, the one we have right now is infinitely more replayable, but still. So as far as like Pyro goes, I'm very reserved on what we see actually being what we get.
Mhm.
Now, granted, if they're just showing off like, hey, these are the planets, these are what they look like, and here's some outposts, I mean, yeah, sure, we'll get that. Anything that is story based, or like, oh, hey, look at the super in depth, amazing mission that you'll totally get to play. No. I'm still waiting on that stealth mission for the Microtech stuff where you had to fly in on the Valkyrie, pretending to be an employee that we never got.
Right.
Um, Still waiting on Miles Eckhart to double cross me.
Yeah,
Which
the
we never
Miles
got.
Eckhart thing. I think they really got messed up with the mission givers when they started to realize that they just didn't work with the current game. Like they
Yeah,
they completely stopped. They had mission givers planned for the game that they just completely removed, or not removed, but like shoved into the back. I think they realized that they just don't run well enough yet.
yeah, and I think they're also kind of running into that conflict where they're trying to build an MMO with heavy story elements, and sometimes those don't really work out because since it's an MMO, you need missions to be repeatable,
Hmm.
and it's hard to repeat story-based things. Like I know you take like a World of Warcraft quest, and it's like, hey, here's you know this guy, go kill him, and then 20 minutes later he respawns and you can do it again.
Yeah.
But with what they've showed off more of what would look like a single player based mission where this is over and done and you're never doing it again. And to spend the amount of time that they've spent building all that, it's not feasible
Well,
for an MMO.
that actually brings up a good point. Is that they talk about how they want to make sure that players, or at least the AI, the NPCs that you encounter, the virtual AI that have their own like traits and personality and all that stuff, are actual characters that once they're killed won't come back. So I do think that they've probably had to go back to how they do missions for mission givers and say, okay, we need to make sure that these have some narrative to them, but they also don't depend on a specific character because that character is gone if somebody else eliminates them. And maybe they'll backtrack on that, but I do think that would probably guide them a little bit more confidently on how they develop the mission giver missions.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're trying to set that up like have you ever seen Westworld?
Yeah. Just
Okay,
first season, first and kind of second.
same. Yeah, I've only seen the first season, but
Mhm.
I feel like initially they've tried to set this up in their world where you can kill things off and the story adjusts or whatever, but we're not just going to go there for a week, yeehaw, take out Eslin at Levski, which no one do that. If you do that, I will hunt you down. Like, Eslin is the best NPC in the game and he will come back, but it's the whole, if someone takes out Eslin or Rekko or old Wallace Clem just for fun, suddenly there are thousands of players that are deprived of that, and I just
Yeah.
feel like it's very hard to weave that as a decent MMO if these characters can be taken out, unless it's just, a random NPC named Bob McGillicuddy who happens to work at Korea and
Ah,
doesn't
McGillicuddy.
offer, missions or anything.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to protect some for
Yeah.
sure. You can't just break the game like that. It would cause so much work to have to like replace them and stuff like that. So I don't know
Yeah,
about
like
that, but
that's
I do
having
think
like a persistent narrative team essentially, and
yeah.
that is so much work.
I think that you make a good point though. A lot of the things that they used to do in CitizenCon were, especially these earlier ones, as I've been going through this video, I'm like, wow, these events were pure hype.
Yep. Yeah.
To the most part, like the first 2 or 3 CitizenCons, they barely even had footage because they just didn't have a game. They were just they spent the whole time talking about, here are the people who we're hiring, here are the studios that we're trying to make, here are the computers that we're building to make it. Like it was just such a indie thrown together kind of situation. And then watching a CitizenCon slowly develop from this sort of like, oh, here's the last year in review, to, okay, here's the next 3 years. And then I feel like maybe around 2020 or so, they started to be like, okay, here's the next year. And now with this one, every single panel that they're talking about, just about all but one, is like, okay, this is the journey to 4.0. Like this is the next 6 months. So it feels to me like they learned, definitely, things like the sandworm, the what's it called? The 2000, I think it was 16 roadmap, and things like that. I think they've learned and they're still getting better at it. But this definitely looks like a different take on CitizenCon format to me.
Yeah, because like, with this, like these are just hard locations that we're supposed to have.
Right.
And like instead of trying to sculpt some sort of story specific mission, it's just like, hey guys, here's some geography. And you don't actually have to delete geography. Like geography is a nice set dressing for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And,
exactly. They've been working on the planets for years, and they're just going to show them.
Yeah, like they've learned their lesson, and they've actually done a fairly good job at delivering in the last couple of CitizenCons. Like I was at the 2018 CitizenCon, and that's when they first showed off the bunker missions, and those weren't, those were pretty much exactly what we got. Even like the closed Darnley mission for getting that one circuit board out of a satellite. I mean, that mission bugs half the time, but
yeah,
pretty much what we got. And then aside from the whole Microtech stealth mission, we got Microtech, we got the Carrick, and then of course they showed off. It was Pyro last year, right?
Yeah, it was Pyro last year
with the 400i mission.
Yeah. So
and
that's I think they spent a lot of time looking at concepts last year, and this year I think they need to spend more time showing us in-engine stuff and functional stuff. I think it's not going to go over well if they aren't showing some real progress in the actual game when it comes to this stuff.
And I also feel like they're trying to give us the entirety of Pyro all at once. Because, with Stanton, we had the moons around Crusader, and then we had Levski, Delamar, and then 3.3.5 comes, and we get Hurston, then eventually ArcCorp, then eventually Microtech. Like, we got Stanton piecemeal as they developed it, and that took years.
Yeah.
And it feels like with this, for Pyro, they're trying to give us an entire system all at once, and that, that's exploration, because we're trying to go out there and find new stuff in Pyro that hits just a bunch of things instead of, all right, here's planet A, next year you'll get planet B, then planet C. Like, it feels like they're trying to do a whole package.
Yeah.
And as much as I have said bad things about CIG, I feel like they're doing this correct the first time around.
I think this is going to be a good model for updates when they get to the point where like the systems are pretty good. I mean, this is years away, 4 or 5 years, whatever. But when they're getting to the point where like the back end systems, the economy, the power systems, all that kind of stuff is pretty good, I feel like the updates are going to be system focused. This is the system that we're bringing in this year or this half or maybe even someday this quarter. This is what the system introduces. Yeah, I know. This is what the system introduces to the game, and that is the theme for the update. I think if they play this right and they can actually land Pyro in a decent state in one patch like this, obviously I think they'll be adding more on in the next few patches after, but like that initial content drop of Pyro could be a great template for how they should keep going on in the future.
Yeah, because I mean that would be excellent. Gosh, that would restore so much hope.
It would be. And it's cool to see. This is one of the other things. This is what excites me most is they're looking at the new mission archetype now. You did say, they show us missions, whether that's the Lear 3 mission with the sandworm or the Microtech mission with the hacking setup. They're a little iffy when it comes to the missions from keynotes and how they get translated into the game. What I like this year, though, is that they're not doing a keynote. Instead, they're bringing in a panel and saying, we're just going to walk you through the design details of this mission. And hopefully we'll get more of that background information that lets us know, okay, this is a serious initiative that the narrative team, the actor features team, the vehicle features team are all pouring some effort into to make a tangible difference in our experiences running these missions. What do you think, though, of, because they talk about how it's leaving behind combat and delivery. What do you have, or rather, what are you thinking that might be?
All right, so that is actually one that I'm excited about because you remember the private investigator wanted mission.
Yes.
We have to go to like Kovacs.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best designed missions in the game. And we've had that since 2.0.
Yeah, it's like the oldest mission in the game now.
Yeah, but like, you take it, some lady talks to you, you have to go out there and do some investigation, and spoiler alert, there's multiple outcomes. Like, you can take the narrative that Kovacs put out, or if you spend a little bit more time digging, you can actually find out that it was a hit job by a pirate who was capitalizing on some guy's alcoholism to get his codes to space the station. And, like when you turn it in, first you get the whole, oh, thanks. And then like an hour later, she calls you and it's like, hey, guess what? Insurance took it through. Here's a bonus. Best freaking mission design we've had so far.
Yeah.
Like, the actual gameplay is simple, but there's multiple outcomes and there's dialogue.
And it doesn't even matter that it's simple.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter that it's simple. Like, it's still fun. Like, you know how many times I did that mission just because it was like it had those types of paths? Like, if we can just get more things like that, like if we could just have more missions where it's like, oh, I can take this in multiple directions. That's all we need. And it doesn't have to be just shooting or moving boxes. It's like, hey, find out what happened to this. Like, oh, that's weird. The flight logs and this broken down freelancers say that, engine failure happened. And then you get to go, point A to point B. Like, it's like a discovery type mission, you know? Like I say, investigation. And it, like, if they could just take that, if they could just take the archetype of the private investigator mission and expand upon that, I think no one would do any other missions because those would be that fun.
I think you're right on. It says that they're focusing on mindful deduction and increased storytelling. It's an investigation mission design brief for that. Something that they can probably apply to different areas, like you said. I think that is one of my top wish list items for 2022. And while they added new missions this year, more than they've ever added in any other year, which is good. Definitely seeing this much focus on a new type of mission, I think, is substantial. I think that's a really big deal.
Yeah. And, like they've had good luck with the other types of missions, but they just feel so...
They're just using existing stuff, just repackaging.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you're just doing like an Uber gig, essentially, like there's no interaction, there's no dialogue, and I know the dialogue's going to be one-sided, but still, like, the dialogue on those missions, like the Tessa Bannister missions, are some of the most cherished things by like the
Tessa.
old fogies. Yeah, that have been around for forever. And they just don't. The new ones just don't have the same heart because you don't have that dialogue. Like, there's no, lady sitting on a space station accidentally saying that there was distress bacon because she forgot her breakfast. like, the little, you get like the black boxes for those missions and listen to the people going on. It's like, I might skip over Hurston because, and then you hear like the airlock and the gunshot, and then some guy's like, kind of scary. And then it's like, oh, wow, she just got murked over. Like, some guy just EVA'd into like her 300i and spaced her,
Yeah, and
Like, those were excellent.
that's backstory. Like, it draws you in. It tells you more about the universe you're living in. All that kind of. That's how they sneak the lore into the game too. It's a really important part of the game is having like interactive missions.
Yeah, and they just copy that, keep doing that. Like,
Yep.
I'm excited for that portion.
Regurgitate.
Just to hope that that's what it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, we've only got a couple weeks left. Were there any other panels that you were specifically excited for?
I'm actually all right. So I'm kind of excited for the need for multiple speeds part.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've gone through like 5 different flight combat models since they've started this whole fiasco. I say that game.
So many.
Game. Because I, again, nostalgia glasses here, but I had the most fun in combat during the old 2.0 days, like 2.63.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep iterating and iterating on the flight model, the combat model, and the thing that I'm looking at here says, learn how master modes initially developed for Squadron 42 will impact the flight experience for the persistent universe. So it feels like we're getting another type of flight model, or at the very least a speed model, but it'll be nice to see a change. I don't know if it's going to be for the better or worse, but
I think
a boy can dream.
I think it will at least help people understand. Well, I guess my hopes are that this will help people understand when to travel a certain speed and why. So a lot of times people don't even realize you can boost. People don't realize that when you're in atmosphere, you're going slower. People don't realize that you have certain types of quantum jumps you need to do. And I'm hoping this introduces something like cruise, like we used to have. And I'm hoping this touches on our VTOL kind of IFCS heat system stuff going on. I don't know how far along they are with that.
Yeah, like I know they don't like the idea of like a Valkyrie being able to just hold itself up upside down for hours at a time. But yeah, like that's what I want to see. Like I want to see what they do with the flight model.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hopefully it's not hover mode, but a better version of it at least.
Yeah.
Or just something a bit more in depth. And I also want to see what they have there, just because they mentioned Squadron 42. So it's like, all right, do they have like a flight model nailed down finally?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean we're closer?
Yeah, I think that's what this is telling us is like master modes is probably something that they've had in concept design and like testing phase in Squadron for a little while now. And I bet they're getting to a point where they think it's good enough for Squadron 42 to have an actual in-depth, like a set in stone flight model. And I think this might actually be what we end up moving forward with, apart from tweaking and things like that. But that's just speculation. Nobody actually knows.
I mean, half the game is speculation, so
it's part of the game, part of the fun.
Exactly.
Overall, I'm excited for this CitizenCon, not necessarily for the reasons I've been excited for other ones. I think I'm most excited for this one because they are continuing the trend of talking more realistically at CitizenCon, and I like that they are clearly deciding to put the actual explanations and work in besides just sort of being like, hey, CitizenCon's coming up. We're going to have a great keynote and you guys can make videos and we'll hold this big contest and all these extra bits. It feels like it's very focused on the game being made this year.
Yeah. Also, by the Corsair and this other surprise ship.
Yeah, by the way, ship sales.
Yeah,
of course. It's
talking ship 2952.
Again, hazard of the job, but
yeah.
Overall, I think it's gonna be decent.
I will say, and this is a vanity point. This is entirely vain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for this one because it is on October 8th, and October 8th is actually the day I joined Star Citizen. It is
Wow.
my Citizen Day.
What year?
So 2014.
Ooh. Holy
Yeah.
crap. Actually, I wonder if where do you see that? Is that on your account?
Yeah, if you go top right on the website, go to account and then just click your name. It'll say enlisted. Mine is
Because
October 8th, 2014.
yeah, I think I must have joined around that same time because I believe I was fall of 2014 as well. I saw it in like 2013, but wanted to wait a year. Let's see. Oh no, I was August 2013. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Wow. Didn't realize.
Ooh, old me.
Yeah. Yeah. We're old. Jeez, that's almost 10 years ago. Oh my God. I've never followed a game that long. Never.
I mean, I have followed one game that long, and it was a text-based game from like 1994. And literally, the only reason I did was because it was the only thing I could run on dial-up.
Necessity.
So yeah, it was more necessity than oh wow, this is so cool. It's the only thing I can play on the internet.
Well, I really do hope that Star Citizen ends up being more impressive than that.
Yeah. I also hate to say that game also had a better
Better economy.
Yeah.
That's how it be. You got to get some of them to come up here. Give us a text-based Star Citizen, please.
Yeah. That'll be the next April
set our
Fool's
release
joke.
back 5 years.
Text Citizen.
Star Textison. Either way.
That's just a bunch of people saying howdy in space.
Texas, big stakes, big space. Well, Jack, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. We got to talk a lot about cargo hauling today, which is really what I wanted to focus on. Also touched on some CitizenCon. Was there anything else that you wanted to make sure to touch on before we headed off?
I mean, I'm sure I'll come up with, tons of witty things as soon as we hang up here.
That's how it is.
But man, I think we've covered just about everything I had. Oh, I will say a quick little tip though, because we were talking about deliveries, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're moving illicit cargo, there are certain ships that, because of various things, if you put them in certain places, the boxes won't actually show up on scan. And I'm sure they'll fix this eventually. But if you're doing like those, illicit delivery missions to Jumptown or whatever, and the cops actually show up to scan you, the Hercules series of ships have a unscannable elevator. If you put your boxes on those, they don't actually scan, which makes the Hercules a better illicit runner than the Star Runner right now. Yeah, just leave your boxes at the C2, the M2, the A2 elevator, whatever, and it's suddenly a better smuggler
there you
than
go.
the Star Runner.
Crusader is advertising the wrong ship.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they gotta sell the burner ships. Everyone goes after that, not the true smuggler. But yeah, just some things like that have actually been an issue for a very long time that they just haven't really. I mean, it's low priority, but
the more you exploit it, the faster they'll fix it.
Exactly. Also works for delivering people with crime stats to places where they can't get in normally, because they won't show up on scans either.
Oh, that's a great idea. Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, so just keep them in the elevator. It's not a fun ride, but it'll get you there.
The elevator of safety.
Yeah, that is my tip for the end.
Kind of goes against the general idea of elevators in Star Citizen, but we'll have it. Anyways,
yeah, don't hit the button. Just ride at it. Lay down if you have to.
Jack, thanks again for joining me. I want to let everybody know where they can find your content, what kind of content you make. So please let the folks know.
I do appreciate it. You can find me on YouTube under Jack Axton. I mostly stream these days. However, once we actually have a cargo economy worth talking about, there will be more videos on that. In the meantime, it will be streams and the occasional dumb video, which reminds me I need to upload my Torpedo Burrito commercial. So I'll do that later today.
Yeah, man. I can't. I think I said this last time we were together. I can't wait to see you take the cargo hauling profession, because you see people, some creators will take mining and really start to build a following around it because they're the authority on it. Some people will take the combat, the dog fighting, and do the same. I really think that you have the chance to do that same thing with cargo, and cargo is going to be like probably one of the biggest parts of the game. So I'm excited to see where that goes, where that takes you, and all the logistics involved.
Thank you, man. I want to be able to do it for sure. Like I want to be able to, at least stay on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just sadly, there hasn't been much to stay on top of. So hopefully CIG throws us a bone or
several
even
bones.
better, a box. Yeah. just the whole pile.
Please, a bigger box. Please.
The whole pile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just give me a profit margin, please.
Something. Give us that Roblox economy.
Exactly. That Roblox economy that pays the actual mileage, the Medivia economy from 1994 that has better trade routes.
Is that text-based game?
Yes. Like that game has been going since 94 and it is still around.
Jeez. That's what I hope we see with Star Citizen. Really, I hope that we're looking at this game in 2045 and we're like, that game's still here. People are still playing it.
Yeah. It's like, I remember buying my Aurora with the Aurora USB stick and the physical package.
Oh, I remember when we didn't know the difference between PvP and griefing. Still be a hot topic at that point as well, I'm sure.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah. I'll never make a video of it, but sometimes I just go on Spectrum and read threads in a mocking voice. It's just such a gold mine if gold was worth anything in the game.
Nope, just that Banu Mithril.
Yeah, just the Banu Mithril, just the Quantanium.
Yeah.
Just the salt.
But yeah, no problem, Jack. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for listening or watching, wherever you might be, whether on YouTube or any of our audio platforms. Audio version is, by the way, ad-free, so if you would like a chance to just sit and listen, that's the best way to go. But I do appreciate everybody who supports by watching on YouTube or by becoming a channel member or a Patreon member. That being said, if you are a supporting member, you can also come and join us live, ask a couple questions, and be involved in the real-time chat during the podcast. So hopefully you enjoyed this experience, and hopefully you come to the next one. This has been episode 70 of The Launch Sequence. I am your host, Space Tomato, and I'll see you next week.